live and direct from the free speech zone called America. The weekend home for truly radical progressives. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ.
Hey, welcome to the weekend, everybody, and welcome to the holiday season. Glad to have you here. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, coming at you live and direct from the upper left corner of the Pacific Northwest, known as the Rose City, Portland, Oregon. We're glad to have you here. We're snowed in, believe it or not, up here in the Pacific Northwest. And for those of you from the Midwest, snowed in here in the Pacific Northwest, that's like an inch or two. So it's an amazing thing happening here.
It's a Festivus miracle.
That's right. It's a Festivus miracle. We are celebrating a Festivus here.
A Festivus for the rest of us.
That's right. And whatever holiday you want to be celebrating out there in this great country we call the United States of America. We got so much to talk about here in the next 2 hours, 5 hours worth of show, only 2 hours worth of time to get it in. So plenty to talk about. The phone number here is 888-7-RADICAL. That's 888-772-3422. And we're live here on the weekend. And before we get too far into the weekend, we better introduce our good friend, our favorite immigrant worker, the man who will still work for an American dollar, a man who enjoys tea and biscuits before he goes to the Marks and Sparks for Boxing Day. It's our good friend, Stevie Webb.
Oh, hi. Hey, Russ. I didn't see you out there. Hey, come on in. We're just having a little Festivus get-together here.
Excellent.
Pull up a chair by the fire and have a mince pie.
I'll do my best.
Have a mince pie. Have it!
What is a mince pie, anyway?
I have no idea.
And what is this Boxing Day thing?
That's Boxing Day is a fantastic idea. Basically, it just gives us an extra day off after Christmas.
Oh, well.
Which you don't have here, which is ridiculous.
I agree. We need
ridiculous.
To do. We should have.
My dear wife has often explained, some of the things that we do in Britain over the festive season is slightly different, particularly with the kind of things we eat, such as the mince pies and the Christmas pudding and the Christmas cake, which my wife has all described as, I think they were culinary offences against nature. Something like that, yeah.
I think of the contribution of the British Isles to our our culinary history is somewhat cloudy. Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah, mince pies, not a great success in the rest of the world. Same with
bangers and
pudding.
mash, not happening.
No, well, bangers and mash is Annie quite digs the old bangers and mash, I must say. Bangers and mash, yes.
Yes.
And Spam, of course.
And Spam. We all love Spam, of course. Well, we've got plenty of stuff to have to talk
Happy
about
Festivus!
Here. Happy Festivus to everyone. Plenty of stuff to cover here on the show today. Stick around because on the big story, oh boy, we got to talk about this Pastor Rick Warren giving the invocation. This is a huge issue to the gay and lesbian community and to those of us who don't think there should be any kind of invocation in a public government ceremony. But we'll talk about that at 888-7-RADICAL as well. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, our good friends from Red State Update, Jackie and Dunlop, are here to talk a little bit about the holiday season and their new song for the holidays, so stay tuned for that. In our Lunatic Fringe Awards, Michael Savage thinks all young women are dominatrixes, Sussman thinks that no liberal women are babes, and Mark Belling says that racism exists because when minorities move in, crime goes up in the neighborhood. So you'll want to learn all about that in our Lunatic Fringe, where we monitor the right-wing radio waves so you don't have to. In our second hour coming up in Living in America, we're going to talk about Dick Cheney, Bernie Madoff, and all these guys at the top who keep seeming to get away with it. In Under the Radar, we're going to look at the surprising number one question at Barack Obama's Change.gov, and in our free-for-all, the U.S. Statistical Abstract, Adolf Hitler Campbell, and Rod Blagojevich, all coming up here on the Russ Belville Show, as well as your emails in our spam segment to radicalruss@gmail.com. But before we get to all of that, I know that a lot of you are like me. You work a full-time job for a living. You don't always have time to catch up on the newspapers or the evening news. So at the top of the Russ Belville Show, I help you catch up on the week's hottest news topics with
The Week in 90 Seconds.
Barack Obama invites Pastor Rick Warren to deliver the inaugurational invocation.
I'm opposed to an older guy marrying a child. and calling that a marriage.
You think those are equivalent to gays getting married?
Oh, I do.
The U.S. joins Russia, China, Syria, and the Organization of Islamic States in saying it's okay to execute gay people.
My sins are perfectly acceptable. Your sins are hideous and evil.
Marijuana legalization is the number one policy question asked at Barack Obama's Change.gov.
But isn't marijuana or dope illegal? Only for those who enjoy it.
Dick Cheney admits on television to authorizing torture, which in civilized countries is considered a war crime.
So it's been a remarkably successful effort.
Bernie Madoff made off with $50 billion in the biggest Wall Street Ponzi scheme ever. Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich swears he did nothing wrong. Mostly, he just swears.
If anybody wants to tape my conversations, go right ahead. Feel free to do it.
Caroline Kennedy seriously thinks she can just phone in and ask for a Senate seat.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
George W. Bush signs off on $13 billion for the auto industry.
You're working hard to put food on your family.
George W. Bush dodges shoes hurled at him by an angry Iraqi journalist. And George W. Bush issues a conscience clause rule for health care workers. Conscience clause? Oh, man, where's my shoes?
Boot to the head.
You know, that had to have been the funniest video of the week or the past couple of weeks. I'm sure you saw it. George W. Bush doing his farewell lap over there in Iraq, and at the press conference has the Iraqi journalist stand up and hurl his shoes at him. The biggest insult you can make in the Muslim world. Seriously, I mean, as far as Islamic, Arabic-type cultures go, just showing the bottom of your shoe to someone is considered, that's like flipping them off. That's like,
pretty bad.
It's
seriously.
really, really bad. So much to the point where the State Department, when you go abroad and you get your passport and you go abroad to some of these Arabic countries, they tell you when you sit down, make sure you don't sit with your legs crossed, where you put your ankle over your knee, kind of cross your leg, because that's offensive because it shows the bottom of the shoe. So to pick up the shoes and hurl them at someone, you can't get a bigger offense in the Arabic world.
We here at the Russ Belville Show also have, don't say that we don't have our secret underground ways of getting information. I actually have a recording here of the Mr. President himself in his suite after the event.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing exclusive audio here at the Russ Belville Show.
Amazing exclusive audio. It was him and his wife. And, well, just hear
George and Laura, right?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Hear what happens for yourself.
Oh, lovely, Austin.
Right over there is fine, thank you.
It's from Austin.
Let's go out on the terrace. It's a beautiful night. We can look at the stars.
Smashing idea, baby. Yeah, look.
Look out!
Oh! That really hurt. I'm going to have a lump there, you idiot. Who throws a shoe? Honestly. You fight like a woman.
Who knew he spoke like that in private?
I know. I was stunned to hear that Laura and George have these London accents. That's amazing.
You fight like a woman.
It's just quite amazing to me. Yeah, this shoe thrower. Now, the shoe thrower, this journalist now, he's become quite the hero in the mainstream Arabic street,
I totally want to see him as like an Arabic superhero, shoe man.
Shoe man!
That would rule. I disrespect you!
The ability to pelt people with shoes at a distance. Oh, yeah. And so he's become quite a hero, but apparently he's kind of also been arrested, charged with stuff. They say when he was taken captive, he got a couple ribs broken. So we here at the show hope that this guy, gets decent treatment, because as far as I'm concerned, that act of throwing the shoes was the perfect punctuation mark on the end of the Bush administration. Perfectly placed. All right, now coming up in some other news here, we're going to be getting to at the next break here. We're going to talk about Pastor Rick Warren. Let me set this up for you. The gay and lesbian community is furious at Barack Obama at the moment for the invitation extended to Pastor Rick Warren from the Saddleback Church. Because this Rick Warren was a strong proponent of the Prop 8 in California that took away marriage rights from gay and lesbian couples in California. Kind of ironic that this guy would be, against gay rights, and he is the pastor of the Saddleback Church. Sounds vaguely homoerotic to me. But anyway, so he's been invited to speak at this at the invocation, and the problem is his big support of Prop 8 and his comparison of gay rights and gay marriage to pedophilia and incest and polygamy. And we're going to go off on that here coming up in the next segment. And I definitely want to get some calls in on this at 888-7-RADICAL, because I'm curious about how you feel about this. Are the folks in the gay and lesbian community and on the progressive left, are we making too big a deal out of this? I mean, it is just an invocation. Or on the other hand, has Barack Obama made a huge mistake by throwing the gay and lesbian community under the bus? I mean, I don't think Obama got much support, votes, or money from the people who go to the Saddleback Church, but he got a lot of money, support, and votes from the gay and lesbian community. So we'll be talking about that here coming right up after the break. This is the Russ Belville Show, the home for truly radical progressives. Give us a call here at 888-7-RADICAL.
Call Radical Russ now at 1-888-7-RADICAL. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Welcome back to the show. It's 21 after the hour, and we want to remind you that if you're a business owner looking to support independent progressive talk radio, you can advertise right here on the Russ Belville Show and on the web at radicalruss.com. Hurry now while 2008 pricing is still in effect. Just send your email to radicalruss@gmail.com. And also, on the future show front, we want to thank the Bill Press Show, because come this New Year's Eve, December 31st, I will be sitting in for Bill Press in front of the microphone, 3 hours, the morning drive time on the East Coast. So that's 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. East Coast time on the Bill Press Show, heard all around the country. Check your listings at, is it thebillpressshow.com, I think, isn't that right?
Billpressshow.com.
Yeah, billpressshow.com. Exactly. Stevie and I will be there sitting in for the 3 hours. That's right. Last show of the year, we'll probably be doing our best of Lunatic Fringe and so on. So make sure you stay.
It's going to be a cavalcade of fun.
A cavalcade, exactly.
Considering we're going to be doing it at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, my time, 3 a.m. But hey, it's that's talk radio, I suppose.
That's it.
All right, well, let's get on to our big story.
Now it's time for the big story.
My, what a big story.
Thanks.
Now here's Radical Russ.
All right, the big story I want to focus on today has to do with this selection by President-elect Barack Obama of Pastor Rick Warren from the mega church, the Saddleback Church, and to give the invocation at the inauguration. And this is a big offense to the gay and lesbian community. They are currently seething at this selection as a slap in the face to those gays and lesbians who helped to support Barack Obama. Well, what's the controversy here? A lot of people point to this Rick Warren guy, Saddleback Church guy, as being one of the new breed of evangelicals because he's helping people with AIDS. He's gone to Africa and he's given tons of money to help people with AIDS, and he's really good on the global warming thing. He's really good about getting evangelicals to take care of God's domain, or however they want to phrase it, to get into the global warming thing. And this is being offered almost as if it were some sort of counterbalance to his rampant bigotry, his rampant homosexual bigotry here against gay and lesbian people. And I'm afraid I'm going to have to call him out on it. I don't care what good works you do. It does not balance treating gay and lesbian people like second-class citizens. I mean, this is like saying, that Grand Wizard of the KKK. Well, he gives a lot of money to Toys for Tots. Well, so what? He's the Grand Wizard of the KKK. Now, I'm not saying Rick Warren is like the KKK. Don't get me on that. But he is a bigot. There's no doubt about it. And I am tired of this bigotry being cloaked in religious language, of saying it's just some sort of policy difference. Barack Obama came out and defended the selection of Rick Warren by saying, well, we need to talk to people we disagree with. We need to be able to work together to solve the problems of the country, despite the fact that we might differ on some issues of public policy. This is not a difference in the issue of public policy. This is whether or not you believe in the values of America, whether or not you believe in the 14th Amendment, whether or not you believe all men are created equal and deserve the same exact rights and privileges as anyone else in this country. let me just play some Rick Warren for you. This is Rick Warren talking to BeliefNet. He's being interviewed by these guys. And maybe this will give you an idea why the gay and lesbian community is so upset about having him pray at the opening of the inauguration.
I'm opposed to having a brother and sister be together and call that marriage. I'm opposed to an older guy marrying a child and calling that a marriage. I'm opposed to one guy having multiple wives and calling that marriage.
Do you think those are equivalent to gays getting married?
Oh, I do.
Oh, I do. Yeah, a guy marrying a child, pedophilia. A guy marrying his child, incest. Just like gay marriage, just like two gay guys if they want to get married, it's just like that. Yeah, no surprise here as to why the gay and lesbian community is a little bit upset about this guy praying, opening up the very first minute of the Barack Obama administration with a slap in the face to gay and lesbian Americans. And don't forget that this Warren guy was also a major proponent and vocal supporter of this Prop 8 crap out in Hollywood, or out in California, where they took away the rights of people that already had them. This wasn't Arkansas or Florida or Arizona where they banned gay marriage before it existed. This is California where tens of thousands of gay couples were already married. And this guy, because of wanting to shove his religion down your throat, thinks that it's okay to take away the rights of those people. And again, it's cloaked in that religious language. It's cloaked in this idea that it's just some sort of policy difference, some sort of disagreement. This is Rick Warren explaining the source of his disagreement.
For 5,000 years, marriage has been defined by every single culture and every single religion. This is not a Christian issue. Buddhist, Muslims, Jews, historically, marriage is a man and a woman.
Oh, I love it when evangelicals give me challenges like that. Nothing like a hypocritical evangelical who has no idea about the Google or the Wikipedia. Let's break it down. You said in every culture and every religion for 5,000 years it's been one man, one woman? Well, according to the Ethnographic Atlas Codebook, of the 1,231 societies noted in human history, 186 were monogamous, 453 had occasional polygyny, that's one man, many wives, and 588 had more frequent polygyny, one man, many wives, and 4 cultures had polyandry, one woman, many husbands. Currently, in South Africa, traditionalists commonly practice polygamy. The leader of the African National Congress is openly in favor of plural marriages and is married to numerous wives himself. Polygamy is encouraged in the Sudan by their president. Polygyny, one man, many wives, is still legal under Islamic Sharia law and is widespread among Muslims in South Asia and other Muslim countries. According to the Islamic Sharia law, remember the Muslims, he said every religion? According to the Islamic Sharia law, a man may have no more than 4 wives. In China, in the Republic of China, it was lawful for a man to have a wife and multiple concubines up until the Communist Revolution and the Marriage Act of 1953. Not 5,000 years ago, a little less than 55. And of course, let's not forget North America and the polygamy experienced or practiced by the 19th century Mormon Church and currently practiced by the 21st century Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Not quite 5,000 years ago. Now, you want to get me on the religion side? Buddhism. According to Buddhism, polygamy is discouraged and extramarital affairs are considered sinful. However, in 2008, a BBC documentary series recorded 3 distinct cases of polyandry in one city alone. In the Hindu religion, polygamy and polyandry were practiced in ancient Hindu society, but still to this day in India, Muslims in India are allowed multiple marriages. And let's not forget Judaism. Hell, you go back into the Old Testament, I can pull you 6 or 7 quotes from Deuteronomy, Exodus, Genesis, etc., showing that polygamy was okie dokie for the Christians. I'm Radical Russ. We'll be right back with more of this talk and our good friends from Red State Update and your calls at 888-7-RADICAL. We'll be right back. Stick around.
Don't touch that dial. We're right back to Radical Russ in just a few minutes. Hey, does anybody really have a dial anymore? You're listening to The Russ Belville Show. This is the Russ Belville Show.
And my wife's people come in from Bristol to ruin my holiday.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. You probably recognize the voices there singing the Holiday Festivus song in the background there. That's our good friends Jackie and Dunlop from Red State Update, who are joining us by telephone from Tennessee. And how you doing, guys?
Hey, Red Russ, how you been?
Hey there.
I'm doing good, but how are you guys doing now that there's a few less red states?
Oh, I tell you what, it was sad looking at. I've never been as disappointed in a map since the last time Google Maps sent me to the bad part of Murfreesboro when I was looking for an Arby's.
An Arby's? Ew.
Hey, listen, you take what you can get down here.
I guess so.
Doesn't Jackie? Don't you do some? Don't you have some barbecue there? Some nice hairy bad food?
He eats that all the time for free.
Yeah, exactly.
He wants to get something. He can go get him something else that's different every now and then.
If you seen how it was prepared, you wouldn't want to eat it either. I'm privileged. I see how he cooks this stuff up.
I see.
Beggars can't be choosers.
It sounds like our...
And Jackie loves himself a big Montana.
Well, yeah, every now and then, big Montana tastes pretty good. You know, we got to try something.
I used to like those. I used to like those Angus burgers they did there until the G fell off the sign.
That's no fun.
Right, that's right. That sounds like I seen a movie called that. Actually.
Yeah. Now, guys, I understand you guys have this new Christmas song out. What's happening with the Red State Update and this tune here?
Well, see, we just figured we wanted to cash in on Christmas. You know, use it to our advantage.
I want to do a song like Grandma Ran Over by a Reindeer, and I thought you'd just change it like my sister or my mama got run over, but they said we couldn't do that, so we did Christmas at a beer joint.
Yeah, Elmo and Patsy have cornered the market on relatives getting murdered by animal Christmas songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of room for us to play in that. So we figured, you know, it's just kind of based on how we've spent the last few Christmases in our life, Christmas in a beer joint.
Gotcha.
Because no matter how lonely and miserable and depressed you are by Christmas, you can always make it worse by going to a beer joint.
Oh, yeah.
I'll second that. We're speaking with Jackie and Dunlop from Red State Update. You can check them out at redstateupdate.com. And just want to get you guys' opinions on a few of the things that are happening out in the news here. One of the most recent things has been all this stuff of the auto bailout. They're, talking about the auto companies are going to fail. Now, I thought you Red State guys were all about like Ford pickups and Chevy trucks and all that. So what happened?
Well, we cannot. The last car I owned, it was a Mitsubishi. I'll admit it. I didn't own it for very long. It cost me $600. I think it was a 93, and I run that into a ditch. And, where was my bailout? Who come to bail me out of that ditch?
Yeah.
So, I don't like giving money to people who live in New York, Wall Street companies, Yankees. But Yankees that work in car factories, I feel more sorry for them.
Yeah.
They're fat. If we didn't have, fat, depressed people working on car lines, we wouldn't have Kid Rock. They wouldn't have produced Eminem.
Yeah.
I mean, these are important cultural touchstones.
Well, one of the things that's interesting about this is watching the Congress fight over this auto bailout stuff. And a lot of the Republican senators from the southern states that have the foreign auto companies in their states are against taking care of the American workers with American companies in the northern states. Is this
bad enough? We got Nissan down the street from us here. Well, I guess it's all right. We got used to it. We weren't too happy when it first opened up down there. There's people upset about it, but
we would just watch Gung Ho and it would make us cry.
Yeah.
The Saturn. I worked as a janitor over in Spring Hill, not too far from Murfreesboro. They got a Saturn plant, and I worked over there for a little while, for a day and a half. Until I found out they drug tested. But, you take a job where you can get it. Everything is failing. I heard old Schwarzenegger out in California, he's going to cut the state budget. Here in Tennessee, they're cutting the state budget. Everywhere you go, it's bad.
Give them air, Cohagen.
Do what?
Give them air, Cohagen.
That's Schwarzenegger there.
I didn't know what was happening. I thought you were having an aneurysm.
Yeah, it's hard when an accent somebody with an accent tries to
when
make fun of
accent
someone with
meets
an
accent,
accent.
no,
yeah,
that's why
just confuses us. I can't.
I never could watch them spitting image puppets because it's just like, I mean, the Genesis video, sure, but other than that, it just confused the hell out of me.
Actually, could you call me a doctor? I think it was an aneurysm.
Oh, all right then.
Ow.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I'm wondering about too here, as we go through this, there's a lot of call here lately about this shoe throwing incident. Where George Bush had to dodge the shoes that were thrown at him.
It's pitiful. I tell you what, here it is, Christmas time, and they're throwing shoes at President Bush. I mean, doesn't Christmas mean anything to these Muslims? I don't know why. You ought not throw shoes at old President Bush. I think that's pitiful.
But I'm sure you and your liberal buddies are all enjoying it. The mass media playing it over and over like it's...
What were they thinking? Hey, we're going over there to talk about pulling troops out. He got less than a month left. Do you know how much damage that man can do in this amount of time?
Yes,
They're just tempting him.
They're just, they're asking for it.
Yeah, I would think so.
Honestly. We have to go back in. Oh, I guess we're still there, but we need to warm them guns up. We need to shock and all the shoes off them SOBs. Listen.
Would that be socks and awe? Wouldn't that be?
Yes, socks and awe.
I think you coined it right there.
We got to go back in. We cannot let. That's not how. Look, over here, the press. Sure, they don't like George W. Bush. We all know that. But they don't throw shoes. Anderson Cooper doesn't throw shoes. He takes his shirt off and gets close to Olympic swimmers. Sure. I've learned to accept that. Chris Matthews sits there and his face gets red and, his leg tingles. That's fine. But they don't throw a shoe.
They restrain themselves.
Yeah. Keith Olbermann, who I'm sure has, gotten off at night to the sight of them gigantic shoes coming off his smelly liberal feet and hurtling towards the head of George W. Bush. I'm sure every night that's his fantasy, but he don't do it.
They don't do it. Yeah, we're speaking with Jackie and Dunlop from Red State Update out at redstateupdate.com.
I couldn't imagine somebody like Osama bin Laden understanding the joy of Hanukkah.
Yeah. So, guys, what are you guys doing for the holiday season right now? Are you engaged in this war on Christmas that's going on?
Yeah, I don't like it. Happy holidays, holiday songs. We even have done a little bit of that ourselves when we're promoting our Christmas single because we want Jewish money. We want it. I don't care what.
If you're doing something in the record recording business, putting a song out there, you gotta, that's where it all comes from.
We want. I don't care how you celebrate Christmas. We want the money. So we'll say Happy Holidays. We'll be hypocritical, but in regular life, I don't even say Merry Christmas anymore. I want to make a statement. When I say Merry Expletive Christmas. I can't say on the radio what I actually say.
Yeah, you can't say that.
But I'm like, I don't want to just say Merry Christmas. I want to get in your face with it. I want to make you squirm when I wish you holiday greetings.
We
Merry effing Christmas.
We have our own tradition here at the Russ Belville Show.
Welcome, newcomers. The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances.
So now that we're in the Festivus tradition and airing the grievances, what is your grievance, gentlemen? What is your latest grievance about this country?
Oh,
our latest grievance.
Good Lord.
I tell you what, we got a big one, and his name is Barack Obama.
Oh, I see. What's your grievance with Obama?
What's our grievance with Obama? Have you not paid attention for the last year? First of all, he's a radical subversive, hope and change, and that has affected this country. You can't even make it. Used to we could, before he got in office, we'd make a Obama joke on a video, and everybody go ha ha ha. Now it's like, hey, you watch your mouth. Everybody's like feel like they think something. This country's on the verge of driving into a septic tank of poverty, war, and insanity, and everybody thinks Obama's going to fix it. I like how all the gay people are mad at Obama now.
Yeah.
Old Saddleback fella don't be at the inauguration. I tell you, I'm upset about it too, but it ain't got nothing to do with him like hating gays. It's just like he gonna be up there. You ever see him doing the preaching and stuff, wearing a T-shirt with the tails out? The shirt unbuttoned and the blue jeans. That ain't no way for a preacher to dress. Good Lord.
So you're more upset about what he's wearing than what he's saying?
Well, you can't listen to nothing what he's saying. A damn hippie up there. I don't want to hear that.
His little goatee.
Yeah, a big old hippie church out in California. Sounds about
hippie
right
church
to
in
me.
California. Well, that's an interesting perspective. Jackie and Dunlop from Red State Update. Check out the website, redstateupdate.com. They got some new Christmas music for you. And, guys, thanks
On
for
that
stopping.
Christmas thing, we got a special guest star in there. I tell you, she was a fine actress. I hadn't seen the movie yet. Her name's Miss Lisa Ann. She played Sarah Palin in a movie. Yeah, she come out and was in that video.
Yes, she did. She played Sarah Palin in the Hustler production of Nailin' Palin, I believe.
Yeah, that's a weird title. I ain't seen the movie yet.
It's about woodworking, Jack.
It's about
I'm going to wait
woodworking.
till Christmas Eve and show it to Jackie. Show him some of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
She seems like a nice lady. I'd be looking forward to seeing that. I think that's good.
Well, gentlemen, thank you. We got to bid you adieu for now,
Sure.
or good day, whatever we're going to say. Thanks for
Merry
stopping by.
Christmas.
Appreciate it. This is the Russ Belville Show, the home for truly radical progressives. When we come back after the break, it's time for the Lunatic Fringe. We listen to the right-wing radio, so you don't have to.
For your little girl or boy, 'cause the economy's done gone wrong. Well, come on down and have a drink on me. It's 2 for 1 all night long. We'll play some
Live and direct from the free speech zone called America. The weekend home for truly radical progressives. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ.
Good day and welcome to Hour 2 of the Russ Belville Show, the home for truly radical progressives, coming at you live and direct from the upper left corner of the free speech zone known as America, up here in the Rose City, Portland, Oregon, and taking your calls at 888-7-RADICAL. That's 888-772-3422. Got plenty of stuff to have to talk about here today, and we're waiting for your calls. We can't wait to get this on the air here. And, of course, joining us across the continent in the studios, minding the phones, our good friend Stevie Webb.
Hello,
Steve.
sir.
Oh, boy, we're having quite the show today, aren't we?
We really are. It's a Festivus miracle.
It's a Festivus miracle.
It's a Festivus miracle.
Yes, we are celebrating Festivus here. Whatever holiday you want to celebrate, that's fine with us, too. But for those of us here at the Russ Belville Show, it's
A Festivus for the rest of us.
That's
Yes.
right. So as we celebrate Festivus, we all have to understand some of the traditions of Festivus.
Yes.
And one of the traditions of Festivus is...
Welcome, newcomers. The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances.
So I'm going to start off with one of my grievances from last hour that I wasn't able to get into, but I was talking a little bit about Pastor Rick Warren from the Saddleback Church giving the inaugural invocation at Barack Obama's inauguration. And, of course, the gay and lesbian community is furious about that because of his comparisons of gay marriage to bestiality and pedophilia.
I'm opposed to having a brother and sister be together and call that marriage. I'm opposed to an older guy marrying a child and calling that a marriage. I'm opposed to one guy having multiple wives and calling that marriage.
Do you think those are equivalent to gays getting married?
Oh, I do.
And then he goes on to say that, every culture for 5,000 years and every religion has always said that marriage is between one man and one woman, which, of course, is not true, not even in his own religion. I mean, you look back in the Bible to Abraham, Jacob, David, Solomon. All these guys had multiple marriages. There's quotes in Exodus and Deuteronomy and all these different places in Samuel and so on. So don't give me this idea that marriage has always been one man, one woman. Even in modern Christianity, we only look back to Valentine's Day of 1650. The Parliament at Nuremberg had decreed, because there were so many men that were killed in the 30 Years' War, they decreed that every man was allowed to marry up to 10 women. Okay? This was 1650. And I can still do my math. That's only 400 years ago or so? Not 5,000 years, Pastor Warren. But the other thing that really upset me about about this Rick Warren guy, is his support of Prop 8 to take away the rights of gays and lesbians who are already married. Not preventing people from getting married, taking away the rights of people who are already married. And he had to keep putting forth this lie about if Prop 8 passed, he wouldn't be able to preach.
The reason I supported Prop 8 really was a free speech issue. If that did not pass, then any pastor could be considered doing hate speech if he shared his views that he didn't think homosexuality was the most natural way for relationships.
Yeah, it's an absolute lie. There's nothing about passing gay marriage that would subject preachers to being charged with hate crime speech. There's nothing about that would happen. We do still have a First Amendment in this country that allows you the freedom of speech. So he goes and tries to fool people, or what am I saying? Try. He fools people by putting forth this lie about squelching preachers' rights when we're really talking about taking away the rights. For the first time in American history, taking away people's constitutional rights. But it is no surprise. Let me give you this other little piece of news that kind of highlights this as well. The United Nations put forth a declaration, and this declaration was that we should decriminalize homosexuality around the world, right? Decriminalize. We're not talking about allowing gay marriage. We're not talking about allowing gay adoption. We're not talking about, protecting gays in the workplace with their rights. Nothing like that. We're just saying, the UN is just saying, gay people shouldn't go to prison or be executed for being gay. That's all. That's all. Now, every other Western nation in the world signed on this measure. All 27 members of the European Union, Japan, Australia, and Mexico all signed on to say we should decriminalize homosexuality. Who didn't sign the measure? Russia, China, Syria, the Organization of Islamic States, and the United States of America. That's right, folks. The United States of America couldn't even sign on to a declaration saying that gay people shouldn't be thrown in prison or executed for being gay. We just couldn't touch that one. Now, why? Well, according to some of the declaration's backers, U.S. officials expressed concern in private talks that some parts of the declaration might be problematic in committing the federal government on matters that fall under state jurisdiction. In numerous states, landlords and private employers are allowed to discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation. On the federal level, gays are not allowed to serve openly in the military. So they couldn't sign on to a measure. The United States could not sign on to a measure decriminalizing homosexuality, saying that we shouldn't imprison or execute homosexuals just for being gay. We couldn't sign on to that because that might mess with don't ask, don't tell, and it might mess up landlords being able to kick gay people out of their homes. I'm sorry, has there been a time warp? Has there been some sort of shift in the time-space continuum where I am no longer living in the United States of America that believes in freedom, that believes in equal rights, that believes in protecting the rights of the minority? This is insane. All right, now back to the airing of the grievances.
Welcome, newcomers. The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances.
So another grievance that I've got here has to do with our Vice President, Dick Cheney. And the latest thing that Dick Cheney has gotten away with here is admitting on national television that he authorized war crimes. Check it out.
Did you authorize the tactics that were used against Khalid Sheikh Mohammed?
I was aware of the program, certainly, and involved in helping get the process cleared. That is, the agency, in effect, came in and wanted to know what they could and couldn't do, and they talked to me.
So,
explained what they wanted to do, and I supported it. There was a period of time there 3 or 4 years ago when about half of everything we knew about Al-Qaeda came from that one source.
Okay.
So it's been a remarkably successful effort. I think the results speak for themselves.
In hindsight, do you think any of those tactics that were used against Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and others went too far?
I don't.
And on KSM, one of those tactics, of course, widely reported was waterboarding, and that seems to be a tactic we no longer use. Even that, you think, was appropriate?
I do.
So, first of all, let's sift through this just a little bit. First lie is that 50% of everything we knew about Al-Qaeda came from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed being waterboarding. That is an out-and-out lie. In fact, the intelligence officials who talked about it admitted that the torture that we had used against these suspects created so many false leads Because what happens when guys get tortured? They start babbling. They'll tell you everything. They'll tell you everything you want to know. They'll tell you who was the guy who was in the grassy knoll in the Kennedy killings. They'll tell you, they'll tell you who blew up the space shuttle. They don't care. They're being tortured. They'll say anything. Let me repeat this slowly. Torture does not work. Period. Torture does not work, period. All of the intelligence agencies who have ever had any sort of opinion on this have all said torture does not work. And it blows my mind. Again, I can't believe that I'm not in some sort of wormhole or alternate universe where Spock's going to show up with a goatee, because we're living in evil America now. I mean, can you believe that torture is even on the table? That it's something we even discuss in this country? Much less to have the Vice President of the United States saying, oh, yeah, waterboarding, we had to do it. We had to torture these guys. We had to do it. It's 9/11. We had to torture them. We just had to do it. Even though we prosecuted the Japanese officers in World War II who waterboarded our troops. Oh, I'm sorry, not waterboarding. Let's get that out of the way, too. I'm sick of that euphemism. Waterboarding, it's drowning. You're not waterboarding someone. You are drowning someone. Now, I have people say, well, it's simulated drowning. You're not really drowning. It's simulated drowning. There's no such thing as simulated drowning. That's like simulated pregnancy. You're either pregnant or you're not. You're either drowning or you're not. Drowning is a verb. And if you look it up in the dictionary, it says the asphyxiation of someone unable to get oxygen because of liquid going into their lungs. That is drowning. That is torture. That is against the Geneva Conventions, and it is un-American. Now, you might be thinking, did they know what they were doing here? I mean, didn't they know torture doesn't work? Why would they go for torturing these guys if they know it doesn't work? I mean, are they just cruel, sadistic bastards? Yes. Yes, they are. And I'll explain that to you in our next segment. Coming up in our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about Dick Cheney and torture. We got Dave in Chicago hanging on the phone who's got an interesting perspective on this as well. Stick around. This is the Russ Belville Show. We got more airing of grievances coming up right after these breaks.
Hey! Happy Festivus, everyone!
You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
All right, welcome everybody. 21 after the hour. 10-4, 10-10 till we do it again. And what's your 20? Hey, welcome back to the show. Yes, sir, we got us a convoy rolling through Liberal Talk Radio here. We're talking about Dick Cheney mentioning that he approved waterboarding. That is the subject of our Living in America. Neocon regressives like to say that we liberals hate America first. I like to say we liberals love America most. That's why we're so disappointed in how badly regressives trash her reputation and treat her people. So today, we help our leaders focus on the plight of the little guy by taking our look at... Living in America, we're talking about Vice President Dick Cheney going on the television and admitting to the world that he authorized the waterboarding, the drowning, the torture, the war crime against Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and others in Guantanamo. And I want to go to the phones and get your opinion on this at 888-7-RADICAL. We're going to visit with our good friend here, Dave in Chicago. Dave, welcome back to the show.
Hey, what's happening, Russ?
Hey, Dave, what do you think about this Cheney thing?
Well, first of all, happy Festivus.
Happy Festivus
Happy
to you.
Festivus, Dave.
Happy Festivus.
It's a Festivus miracle.
That's right. Everywhere I go around the country, I'm ruining Christmas. That's going well. I'm fighting Santa Claus over there, so we're not fighting him over here.
Okay.
You and I have spoken previously about the warrants that are out for president and vice president in Brattleboro, Vermont, and Marlboro, Vermont, and Newport, Oregon.
Yep.
The brave people over at Squadron 13 doing a great job. So to your audience that don't know about this, I mean, not to insult anybody's intelligence, I know most of your audience knows, they've issued arrest warrants in those towns for George Bush and Dick Cheney, the concept being if the president or vice president ever visits these towns, they could be arrested there. So upon hearing these news stories early on in the year, I decided to approach my police department and find out if that could be done. So I readied myself by thinking deeply about how the conversation would go and what kinds of questions would be brought up. I brought lots of evidence in the form of books, magazines, newspapers. What happened was that I was told by the desk sergeant, she had a couple minutes of me and said, let me get somebody. She got the supervisor out, and he walked up, and I explained to him for a couple minutes, names, dates, places, facts, and figures, and why Dick Cheney is, as you were just saying, here he's out admitting that they condone torture and ordered it. And so this police supervisor started screaming that my research was BS, and he kept yelling BS until a couple officers showed up with their hands on their guns and threw me out. So just days ago, I went back and I re-explained my situation. Not only are they giving me their ear, they're saying they're sympathetic to my cause.
Wow. I
pulled out the Vince Bugliosi book, and one of the police goes, hey, I read that. Wow. And so what's happening is what I'm telling you is I'm getting bites. I'm getting nibbles.
Yeah.
And there is another town very close by me where they're actually laying off a bunch of police officers. And this is happening all over the country.
Yeah, it is.
These guys now have reason to listen. And that's what's so tough about these right-wingers. They do not listen until it affects them personally.
Yeah.
So this is something that all of us liberals can get on board with, try to do something like this. Now, the problem is with liberals, we're kind of screwed up just as much as the conservatives, but in different ways. And liberals are non-confrontational people.
Yeah.
You would really have to push yourself to walk into a police agency with names, dates, places, facts, and figures, books, magazines, whatever it takes, and explain your situation and tell them, we're trying to start a movement across the country and do this. If this became a movement, the news would have to pick it up.
I agree.
See where I'm getting?
That's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful. I'm going to encourage everyone out there listening too. If you've got the cojones like Dave does here to go into your local police department and bring this up, I think it is a movement that definitely needs to be started here.
Stop at your local steel supply and pick up some brass.
They're picking some brass because this is only going to happen from the ground up. This is only going to happen up from the grassroots. We know the leadership is not going to do a thing about this. We know Obama has already set this tone of let's let bygones be bygones. We got too many problems. We can't go. It's all in the past. It's water under the bridge. Bull. This is the rule of law. And if we continue to set this tone in America that if you're well connected enough, if you're powerful enough, if you're rich enough, you can get away with it, they're going to continue to get away with it. We can't depend on our democratically. We can't depend on Nancy Pelosi. We can't depend on Harry Reid. They got no stones to pull this off. It's going to be the American people that pull this off, the people that truly believe in the rule of law. People like you, Dave, and thank you so much for doing that.
Later, Russ. You got a show to do later.
Dave from Chicago Massacre.
Yeah. And now about this waterboarding, about this torture, these war crimes that were authorized, I mentioned before, and everybody knows this, that torture does not work, and all of the intelligence agencies say torture does not work. So you got to think, why would they have authorized it if they knew it didn't work? We can assume one or the other. We can assume one, that they didn't know it wouldn't work and they thought it was a good idea. I don't buy that. I think they've got enough experience, enough people around them telling them what would or wouldn't work, that they knew torture wouldn't work. So you got to ask yourself, if you know torture's not going to work, why would you authorize it anyway? I'll tell you why. It's by design. Check out Naomi Klein, who wrote the book of Shock Doctrine, Disaster Capitalism. The idea here was to create a war big enough and chaotic enough so that they could loot the treasury without us knowing. Now, if we go in and take over Iraq with shock and awe and our overwhelming military force, and we do it right by sending enough troops, and we secure all the weapons in the weapons caches, and we treat the people that we capture fairly and under the law, well then we'd have the thing taken care of in a few months, and there would be no opportunity for Halliburton and KBR and Blackwater and all these guys to loot our treasury. So they purposely went in without enough troops. They purposefully did not guard the military caches, and they purposefully tortured. I believe they purposely tortured so they could inflame the Muslim world, so they could create the conflagration that they needed. They could create the chaos. They could create the destruction and the warfare that they needed as their smokescreen to loot our treasury and destroy our Constitution while they're at it. It's the only explanation that makes sense. They tortured these people. And we've gotten the reports from the intelligence folks out in Iraq who have said, that the events at Abu Ghraib and the events at Guantanamo, the torture that happened there, were instrumental in bringing huge numbers of people to fight in Iraq. George Bush wanted Iraq to be the front in the war on terror, and the only way to make that happen was to torture people to get the recruitment in to make it a bigger fight. 4,000 plus American lives and hundreds of thousands of Iraqi lives are on Dick Cheney's head. He deserves to be tried for war crimes, impeached. I don't care if it happens here in America. He's locked up here. If he goes to The Hague or some other country, it needs to happen. I'm Radical Russ. We're right back after these messages.
Don't touch that dial. We're right back to Radical Russ in just a few minutes. Hey, does anybody really have a dial anymore? You're listening to the Russ Belville Show. This is the Russ Belville Show. Not some pot legalizing, tax hiking, government expanding, latte drinking, sushi eating, Volvo driving, New York Times reading, body piercing, Hollywood loving, left wing freak show. He drives a Jeep.
That's right. Welcome back to the show. It's 35 after the hour. Our phone number here is 888-7-RADICAL. We're waiting for your calls, and we hope that you are having a fantastic...
I celebrate Festivus.
And so do we. We're all celebrating Festivus.
Happy Festivus, everybody.
For the rest of us.
That's right, a Festivus for the rest of us. We got the aluminum pole set up here in the studios, and we are all celebrating around the Festivus pole. We just competed in the feats of strength.
We did.
I was able to wrestle Stevie to the ground.
I lost quite miserably.
Yep.
Again.
So feats of strength, I am the winner.
Yeah.
And we are the whole show.
Tinsel distracts me.
It's the tinsel, huh? That's your excuse? Yes, and this whole show, of course, is the...
Welcome, newcomers. The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances.
So I got a few grievances, and we're going to get to one right now. Every week here at the Russ Belville Show, we sift through the headlines to find the stories buried in the back pages or ignored on the evening news. Stories our citizens and our leaders need to hear. In this segment, we go under the radar. All right, so I want to talk about the Barack Obama transition team a little bit here. They've been naming all their cabinet officers and such, but another thing that's happened is the Obama transition team has opened up their transition to suggestions from the people. They have a website, change.gov, and at the change.gov website, people could log on and submit policy questions, what things they'd like the Obama administration to take a look at, and everyone who logged on could vote on this, and then the best ones that get the most votes would raise to the top of the list. Now, since they launched this segment, which was called Open for Questions, they processed 600,000 votes from more than 10,000 people on more than 7,300 questions. So, 7,300 questions, hundreds of thousands of votes, tens of thousands of people participating, and we've got, the bailouts happening, we got two wars going on, we've got terrorism, we got the economy going into a shambles, we got the shredding of our constitutional liberties, warrantless wiretapping, torture. What do you think was the number one question? Marijuana. That's right. The number one question at the change.gov website was, will you consider legalizing marijuana so the government can regulate it, tax it, put age limits on it, and create millions of new jobs and create a billion-dollar industry right here in the U.S.? Out of tens of thousands of people voting, hundreds of thousands of votes, all the big issues on the table, the legalization of marijuana was the number one question asked. Now, unless you think this is a fluke, let me dig down a little deeper in this thing. Not only was marijuana legalization the number one question, questions on drug law reform and the war on drugs in particular were 2 out of the top 10, 6 out of the top 20, 16 out of the top 50, and 31 out of the top 100 questions asked at change.gov for the Barack Obama administration had to do with ending this stupid war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs. So, with 31% of the questions, a plurality over any other subject on the list, with 31% of the questions having to do with ending the drug war, and the number one question about legalizing marijuana, Barack Obama's answer was, quote, President-elect Obama is not in favor of the legalization of marijuana. That's it. Nothing about the regulating and taxing, putting age limits on it, creating millions of new jobs, billion-dollar industry. Not a word about that. Just 11 words. President-elect Obama is not in favor of the legalization of marijuana. Now, I didn't expect him to say yes. Nobody expected him to say, oh, yeah, let's legalize it and we'll fire one up. No one expected that. But could we get a little more than 11 words about a topic that 31% of your questions were about? More than 11 words? The other 4 questions that they went and highlighted on change.gov, one had to do with stem cell research. He gave 23-word answer to that. Transparency on the Wall Street bailout money. Boy, that got us a whole paragraph. We got 118 words on that. Something about promoting science and mathematics education. We got 79 words on that. And restoring constitutional protections, we got 71 words on that, which is fine. I'm all for that. Those things are definitely important. I'm not saying that the drug war is any more or less important than those. I'm just saying that it deserves a little more than 11 words of consideration. Now, to give you a better idea about this, in the top 20, here's some of the other questions that made the top 20. Number 7. 13 states have compassionate use programs for medical marijuana, yet the federal government continues to prosecute sick and dying people. Isn't it time for the federal government to step out of the way and let doctors and families decide what is appropriate? Now, nothing about medical marijuana from the Obama transition team. Number 11, the U.S. war on drugs wastes billions every year tracking down and incarcerating nonviolent users. What is your position on the legalization of marijuana? How do you feel about treating rather than imprisoning users of harder addictive drugs? And yet, we got 11 words. That's all we get. Nothing about addicts or decriminalization. Number 13 question, how will you fix the current war on drugs in America, and will there be any chance of decriminalizing marijuana? Number 15, what kind of progress can be expected on the decriminalization and legalization for medical purposes of marijuana, and will you reprioritize the war on drugs to reflect the need for drug treatment rather than incarceration? And the number 18 question, the U.S. has the world's highest incarceration rate, largely due to the war on drugs. Our prisons are festering pits of rape, racism, and gang violence, and divert a lot of tax money to the corrupt prison industry. How can we fix this? And with all of those being questions asked of Barack Obama, all he could bother to say is, President-elect Obama is not in favor of the legalization of marijuana. It's a question that deserves a better answer. And in another appearance, Barack Obama was announcing his heads of some of these cabinet posts, and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, Oceanic Administration, all those kind of things. And he wanted to bring up this idea of how we're going to start following the science. This is Barack Obama from his Saturday address just today, his radio address.
Because the truth is that promoting science isn't just about providing resources. It's about protecting free and open inquiry. It's about ensuring that facts and evidence are never twisted or obscured by politics or ideology. It's about listening to what our scientists have to say, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient. Because the highest purpose of science is the search for knowledge, truth, and a greater understanding of the world around us. That will be my goal as President of the United States.
And I think that's a fantastic goal. Listen to the science, ensuring that facts and evidence are never twisted or obscured by politics or ideology. And yet, when it comes to marijuana, when it comes to medical use of cannabis, the facts and evidence are always twisted and obscured by politics and ideology. The science is behind this, Obama. The science is on the side of decriminalization and medical use of marijuana. The New England Journal of Medicine from 1997 said that federal authorities should rescind their prohibition of the medical use of marijuana for seriously ill patients and allow physicians to decide which patients to treat. The DEA's administrative law judge even said that marijuana has been accepted as capable of relieving distress of great numbers of very ill people. More than 60 U.S. and international health organizations all support the medical use of marijuana. And in the 13 states that support medical marijuana, we have seen hundreds of thousands of people get benefit from pain, nausea, spasticity, glaucoma, movement disorders, AIDS wasting syndrome, nausea from chemotherapy. The science is on our side. And most importantly, every single government study ever commissioned in the United States or elsewhere, ever, going all the way back to the 1894 British East India Hemp Drugs Commission, all the way back to 1894, every single government study has said that marijuana should be decriminalized and no one should be arrested for the personal, private use of marijuana. And yet, with all this science behind us, with all the people in America, with Massachusetts and Michigan passing marijuana reform initiatives with more votes than Barack Obama got, with Michigan passing medical marijuana in 83 out of 83 counties, even the counties that voted for John McCain voted for medical marijuana, our politicians are still lacking the courage to stand up for what the people want, and that is to treat marijuana with scientific evidence, with scientific truth, and end this stupid war on drugs. I'm Radical Russ, and that's the way I feel about it. That's my airing of the grievances for this Festivus.
It's a Festivus miracle.
We're taking your calls in our last segment at 888-7-RADICAL. That's 888-772-3422. Let me know what you think about it. We'll be right back.
It's not something that you just dump something on.
Join the radical revolution on the inner tubes. Log on to radicalruss.com now.
It's not a big truck. It's a series of tubes.
That's Senator Ted Stevens, Uncle Ted from Alaska.
DJ Ted Stevens.
That's right. DJ Ted Stevens, the 7-time convicted felon. Oh, we're going to miss Ted Stevens. And we're going to miss a lot of these guys as we move on to the next administration. So coming up on next week's show, it's going to be the best of 2008. It's going to be a live show. We're going to be looking back at all the lunatic fringery and the crazy stories that we covered throughout 2008. So stay tuned for that next week. Also coming up next week, on the day of New Year's Eve, December 31st, that's a Wednesday, I'll be up early in the morning to sit in at the Bill Press Show. Check out BillPressShow.com for the stations and the times where you can listen. I know it's on live 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on the East Coast, which means I'll be here at 3 in the morning over in Portland, Oregon, having a good time filling in for Bill Press while he takes a well-deserved break. Now, we were talking just a second ago about Barack Obama's response to the marijuana legalization question.
Look, when I was a kid, I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
And apparently Barack Obama still supports arresting young black men who use marijuana like he used to. Can you imagine if he'd ever gotten arrested for marijuana when he was a kid? Do you think he'd be president now? Nah, I don't think so. And that's part of our holiday tradition here. We are celebrating Festivus.
Welcome, newcomers. The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances.
So we want to get some more grievances aired. We're going to go to the phones now at 888-7-RADICAL and speak to our friend Matt from Traverse City, Michigan, who's got a grievance to air. Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and Happy Festivus and all that other stuff. First of all, thanks for pointing out that disappointing position that Barack's taken on marijuana. I hadn't seen that, and I hadn't heard that before. But that unfortunately seems to be, sort of fitting a pattern
And when I called you a couple of weeks ago, I was expressing my disappointment with Barack's cabinet selection.
I remember.
And also the fact that I thought it was really kind of classless not to invite the Reverend Wright. If at the time he was willing to embrace Lieberman. And of course now he's, sort of one up that by embracing Rick Warren of all things.
Yeah.
So, a really disappointing pattern setting up here. But what I mostly want to call your attention to is there was a fantastic article yesterday in Salon by Glenn Greenwald, and it really it's called, I believe, Is This Really Change, or something about Obama, is he really bringing change, or something like that. But anyway, it's Salon on Friday, and it's by Glenn Greenwald. That what the central theme of the article is that Barack's embrace of the religious right and the right generally, this is not a new strategy. Basically, this is what the Democrats have been doing with dismal results for the last 20 years, whether they controlled the executive or not. And, Bill Clinton bent over backwards both to the conservatives and the religious right, and what did he get for it? They tried to impeach him. And you're talking about marijuana, for example. Well, Hannity is still pumping this thing about the photographs, and if they'd come out earlier when Barack was smoking, and God knows he was probably smoking dope, he would be horrible. So Barack, hopefully for the good of the country, this method of trying to bring in the right will work, but the track record is abysmal.
Yeah. What I'm upset about is this idea that we need to compromise and all work together always means those of us on the left moving rightward. It never means those of them on the right moving leftward. It's always us that have to move under this crazed idea that somehow America is a center-right country, which it isn't. When you go and look at the opinion polls of just about every public policy that's out there, except for the death penalty, other than that, every position that comes out for the majority of Americans is a liberal or progressive position. Why are these politicians so afraid of the liberal perspective?
I definitely think that's true. And I think that in American culture, there's sort of a reflexive answer that, I'm a conservative, or I'm a Republican. But when you actually poll the people on an issue like marijuana, and that's a perfect example, or abortion, or issue after issue, you find out that they're actually Democratic or liberal positions they have, but they sort of reflexively say that I'm a conservative.
Yeah.
And I mean, that seems to be just because it seems to be proper to identify yourself as conservative. And you're right. If Barack's going to embrace the Reverend Warren, then he needs to embrace somebody like a Reverend Wright. Bring him back. He was his 20-year minister, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the cabinet. There are maybe 5, quote, liberals out of a whole collection of moderate war hawks and neoliberals that are in this cabinet, but there isn't one real liberal like, for example, Paul Krugman.
Exactly. Put him in charge of commerce.
And so his definition of bipartisanship is really dishonest. I mean, if you're going to have an honest bipartisan administration, okay, you go out and you get Paul Krugman, and then you get Chuck Hagel. But you don't just get a whole collection of, old retreaded Clinton Easters and people like Rahm Emanuel, or worse, and call that bipartisanship.
Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. Thank you for your call. I appreciate your opinion. I got to move on and get another call here before the end of the show. So let me go out to, I think it's Glipton, Tennessee, and Bob is on the line. Bob, welcome to the show.
Oh, Russ, good to hear from you. Listen, I just wanted to comment on the perceptions of George Bush.
Okay.
Not only was he able to see the soul of Putin, he was able to see the soul of an Iraqi journalist.
Yeah, I guess so. The soul. I love puns, man. Thank you so much for that, Bob. I appreciate that one. Okay, coming back here, let me wrap up the show here. Here at the Russ Belville Show, we also like to, we know that a lot of you out there listening to the radio, you might be driving, you don't always get a chance to get to the phone and call us, but you can always send us an email at radicalruss@gmail.com, and we read them here in our last segment of the show.
I don't like spam.
All right, so for our first...
I had to hold myself back through that whole thing.
I know. Like I tell folks, Monty Python clips are like catnip for British people. You gotta be careful. Our first email here comes from John from Carthage, Missouri, who writes me in regards to the auto bailout. And he says, I have many friends in St. Louis where I used to live that are auto workers, and they are seriously overpaid. They are not worth $80,000 a year, which is what they earn, not including benefits. And this goes back to that idea of everybody on the, going against the auto workers here for making a decent middle class living, instead of decrying the fact that the rest of us aren't making a decent middle class living. Don't get mad at the unionized workers who've managed to protect the middle class lifestyle. Get mad at the fact that we don't have union protections for everyone else to be able to have a middle class lifestyle. Now, another email here. We got this one coming in from Mark in Oregon. You've heard Mark before. Mark is the poet laureate of our Russ Belville show. He sends us poetry every now and then. And you can check out his poetry at myspace.com/ofrhymeandreason. And
I've got the lyre ready.
Okay, get the poetry music ready. This one is called, what was the title of this one? Anyway, it's about the auto workers. I'll just read it for you. Like General Lee from the southerly states of Union disdain, to Dement, Corker, and Shelby, who say, we really have no shame. We're here to protect foreign car makers like Toyota and Mercedes-Benz. We give tax rebates that destroy our schools. We hate America to no end. We do not question Wall Street's motives of $700 million to the banks. We're here to destroy the union again so the South can rise in ranks. But voting against $14 billion to save the Big Auto 3 is also voting against your suppliers who help your economy. So when our economy hits E on the tank and you filibustered the federal lender, just remember that as the North goes, the South will never be a contender. Thank you, Mark, and thank you all for listening. Happy Festivus to all of you. We'll be back next week with more. Peace, everyone.
Always look on